Hello and welcome to the Business Growth Show.
I'm Adam from Active Internet Marketing.
And I'm John from Octopus Computers.
And we're going to be hosting this podcast regularly, particularly appealing to businesses in the Stamford and Rutland area. We're going to have lots of exciting guests where we can start to hear about their career journeys and how they've got to the place that they are now. And hopefully there'll be lots of advice and beneficial information for people.
So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on, drop us a like and a follow and stay in touch. Welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. We're joined today with Andy Nisevic from 1 Degree. Andy, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
That's quite right. Can you introduce yourself perhaps better than I did and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, well done on saying my name right, first of all. Andy Nisevic, 1 Degree. The full company name is 1 Degree Training and Coaching, but I just call it 1 Degree. We are a kind of team dynamics specialism company. So we work with managers with whole teams so they can better relationships, better team environment, and ultimately better results.
Nice. How did you get into that? Because that's not something you fall into.
No, and to be honest, up until within the last week, I've just been calling myself a leadership trainer, leadership coach.
Yeah.
Because I spent 23 years in the Air Force, promoted through all the non-commissioned ranks. My last job was teaching the Air Force's leadership courses. So when a business coach asked me, what do you do? I teach leadership.
Yeah.
But what I quite naively didn't realise the difference between the military world and what we do there and obviously what the civilian world is. And there's so much out there. I mean, how people make money in the civilian world just baffled me. There's people I know that make a lot of money teaching people to breathe.
Yeah.
Now I've done a couple of those courses and I know it's quite complex. But my messaging wasn't really on there. So I was calling myself a leadership coach and people were asking, okay, what qualifications do you offer? And I was like, I don't offer any. I can do CPD. I can coach you and get some great results. So I took a bit of time to reflect on actually what do people get from working with me? And ultimately people get better teams. So that managers who understand the people in their teams at a much deeper level, better team relationships and ultimately better results.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that, Andy, then, in terms of, does that lead into establishing the right culture, or is it just getting the team more united so that they're all pulling in the same direction?
All of the above.
Right.
Yeah. So your team culture is driven from what that vision is. And I mean, we can go into the nuts and bolts, but I think most people listening to this, if they're in business, they know what a vision is and what have you. But ultimately, it's that vision that keeps people on the same page. The mistake that I see get made all the time, not because people are deliberately negligent with it, is just because we're busy people in business, and especially where there's kind of multiple levels of leadership, multiple departments, everybody's really busy. So you lose focus on what the ultimate vision is, and you just get focused on what your responsibility is. And often what you need from other people conflicts with what their priorities are. So that's where siloization starts to happen, and people start pulling away, people pulling in different directions. And that's kind of what then means that companies don't grow and excel. So when you can kind of understand, are the senior leadership team working to one vision, or are they focused on what their requirement is, or are the managers at the next level down, are they just focusing on the day-to-day, are they stressed, that sort of thing. So you can kind of do a real top-down approach. What is the vision? What is the desired culture? What is it that's said on the tin versus what is the real life experience? Because often they're two very different things. And when you can kind of understand that, then you can kind of say, right, this is the solution that's required. Yeah. But until you know that, you're just doing stuff. And I don't like to just do stuff. I like to actually know what is the need and then kind of go in there to provide what is actually neted.
How did you find the transition from doing forces to civvy? Because it's quite a shift.
A lot of people ask me kind of, do you miss being in the Air Force? And there are elements that I miss. Obviously, going from a 30-odd thousand strong organisation to working for yourself by yourself is a completely different culture shift. And there are times where I'm lonely. I live by myself. I'm a single bloke. I work for myself by myself. So and that's why I go out networking quite a lot. I network just to meet people, spend time around people. So that side of things was a tough thing to get used to. But I get to be the master of my own destiny. I get to think, right, this is what I think is the right thing. and I get to succeed or fail based on my own merits rather than having to argue with people who might have different opinions and things like that. So yeah, there are pros and cons to it. I'm glad I left the Air Force when I did. I'd got to that stage where I no longer wanted to do what being in the military requires of you.
And was that the purpose behind leaving? The sort of, I've had enough of this culture almost? Or?
It wasn't necessarily culture, because I'm proud of the service. I enjoyed being in. But I got offered promotion to warrant officer, and the 2 jobs that were available just didn't excite me. And it would have meant moving again to a part of the country that I didn't want to move to do a job that I'd done before, and I knew I wouldn't enjoy. And I just thought, I loved this job teaching leadership. I fell in love with the subject. The psychology of it fascinates me. And if I could have stayed doing that forever, I'd still be in the Air Force. But I thought, I advised people who'd been on my teams who had worked for me over the years, if you no longer want to be in the Air Force, if you no longer want to do what the Air Force needs you to, it's time to go. Otherwise, you just become a miserable git. And I didn't want to be that person.
That's very good.
Yeah.
How did you manage the risk then, or that leap from structure, people telling you what to do, to mastery of your own destiny? Because that's a jump, right?
That really is hard work. I even struggle with it now.
Yeah.
I'm in discussions about a joint venture partnership, and I said to him, I just need you to tell me what to do. Tell me to do this by then, and I'm sorted. I'll be happy.
Yeah.
He kind of smiled, but realistically, there's kindness in that clarity, isn't there? Like, I know exactly what I need to do, and I know exactly when I need it to be done by. But when you're your own boss, and 23 years in the military didn't teach me how to run a business, I'm making it up as I go along.
We all are.
I've learned lots of things. I've learned lots of conflicting things as well. When it comes to running the business, I'm quite good. When it comes to marketing the business, I'm not good at all. There's lots of lessons that you learn along the way, and just having those people around you to keep you on track. There's real kindness in that. I've completely forgotten what the original question was, and I've just gone off on tangents, and hopefully it will do.
Well, I did that. It's fine.
What have you enjoyed the most so far about setting up your own business and starting it? What's been the best fits?
I think it's that when you've got a solution to a problem, like when people are able to come to you and say, this needs fixing, and you're able to determine what the solution is, you work with them, and then you see the difference. And I know Adam, obviously working in marketing, you see that difference every day for people. When you put a strategy together, you've put the tactics in, and it starts getting results, it's going to have that. And John is obviously somebody who quite literally keeps people potentially out of jail, because if they're using people's data and information wrong, there's all sorts of problems that come with that. So when you provide that safety and that assurance for people, and people can know that everything's running on, but it gives you a sense of joy, doesn't it? And the same goes with what I'm doing. When you see a company that I'd prefer to work with companies that aren't necessarily struggling, because you don't have to do so much deep work. But the real joy comes when their company is struggling. So culture might be bad, morale might be bad, and then you go in there and you see that turnaround, you see the difference that can make. So people are less stressed, people are enjoying life more, and then the company is obviously managing to grow from that. There's a lot of self-satisfaction that comes from that.
Because, imagine, definitely. And is there a certain size of team you prefer to work with, or you've found you can have the most impact?
So I've worked with businesses that are 5 people strong. I've worked with businesses that are several thousand people strong. You get to have the biggest impact the smaller the business is. Right. But obviously, I'm not a charity. I have to make money. So, and the larger businesses tends to be the businesses that have more budget for the work that I do. So I usually look at businesses from about 25 people upwards.
Right.
That gives me that balance of smaller businesses, bigger impact, but also then those larger businesses that there might be more work to do.
Getting into the actual day-to-day for you, how do you go about changing a bad culture? Because that's something which I know a lot of businesses struggle with, where there's perhaps a bad apple or two and it's become entrenched. How do you go about rooting that out and fixing it?
So the automatic assumption is that when morale is bad or there's a bad culture, that it's because there's a bad manager, a bad leader, that sort of thing. Often that's not the case. In my experience, about 80% of people that have got that label toxic leader are ordinary, decent people outside of work. They're liked by their friends, they're loved by the family, but inside of work, they're under a lot of pressure. They've also not necessarily had the support, the development, the mentoring in order to know how to lead people effectively. Because anybody who's ever had people working with them know that people are your greatest resource. They're also your greatest source of frustration. Not because they're trying to be, because we're all different. So often when you get that level of understanding, like what is my personality? How do I come across as a leader? Because I know what I intend. Very few people in the world intend to be negative people, but it's how is that perceived by other people? And the way that we're perceived by other people has so many nuances and so much context that needs to be applied. What's going on in their life? How much pressure are they under? What are their personality profile, their motivational factors, their conflict sequences? All of these sort of things will affect how we're perceived. So we can have the greatest intent in the world, but our team members hate us. And that usually stems. So starting from that point of understanding usually then has that biggest impact.
I've always found it interesting when you do the tests that people can go through. There's various ones, and quite often their natural leaning is very different to the traits they display in a workplace, isn't it? And certainly if they're in a managerial or leadership role. Yeah.
So if you do a personality profile when you're at home, you're in your home mindset.
Yeah.
So the way you are at home versus the way you are at work is going to be different. So I give some quite like strict instructions. Like if you're going to complete a personality profile, do it at work,
right?
But do it when you're just in that routine, normal business as usual type mindset. Because if you're incredibly busy and massively stressed, your natural responses to these questions are going to be skewed.
Yeah.
Or likewise, if you're really quiet and it's really boring, you're going to be in a different mindset. So you're getting that routine, that kind of where it's business as usual, things are ticking along. It tends to give you your better results. But nobody's ever going to convince me that you're ever going to get a 100% accurate personality profile because bias is always going to influence it. Societal bias, who you think you are versus who you actually are, what you think your boss might want. Somebody actually told me that they answered their personality profile in the way that they thought their boss would want them to because of who their boss is, which meant that they got led by their boss in the way that their profile results came out and they hated it.
Yeah.
So that becomes really inefficient. So we do have to understand that there's going to be some bias. You're never going to get a 100% accurate, but that knowledge is better than having no knowledge. And it really helps you kind of adapt. I'm a fan of adaptive leadership, where you kind of adapt to the person and to the team in general.
What sort of personality profiling? It sounds bad actually, but that sort of categorization do you use? Is it like DISC or Myers-Briggs, or I'm trying to get some other ones, but it's a load out there. Do you have a favorite?
So DISC is one of the ones. So I use two, DISC and SDI, which stands for Strength, Deployment, Inventory. DISC I love. The genius in DISC is its simplicity.
Yeah, I can keep up with DISC.
It's nice and easy. 4 core personality types, but then obviously you've got the blends and things like that. But it's really easy to explain, really easy to understand, but it's already also, once you know what you're looking for, it's really easy to understand the factors within other people. So then you can adjust as necessary. SDI is far deeper.
Okay.
So the downsides to DISC is it's very changeable. It's very surface level. You can be one thing one day, do a change within your life can happen, and then you start to present in a different way. SDI, the studies show that over the course of 20, 30 years, you barely change because it looks at you much, much deeper. So it will give you the same information as DISC does, but then also looks at what your strength, what your strength profile is. So there's a kind of a 28 strengths, and kind of the ones that feature at the top, they're the ones that you naturally bring.
Yeah.
And the ones in the middle, they're the ones that you kind of dip in and out of as the situation demands. And then there's ones at the bottom that it's not that you can't use them, it's that it doesn't naturally occur to you and you have to work hard in order to use them. But more often than not, where there's tension, where there's conflict within an organization or a team or a department, it's usually because one person has got some strengths at the top of their pyramid and the other person has got those same strengths at the bottom of their pyramid. So they're not doing anything wrong or bad. They're just working in different ways that annoys the other person.
Really interesting, isn't it? So getting more unity between that team is a huge part of the overall goal.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily about liking people. I know one example where there was 2 people constantly at each other's throats, one of the most toxic environments I've ever been in. outside of their office, they were both lovely people.
Yeah.
But they were complete opposite personality types. The guy loved lots of noise, loved lots of laughter, that sort of thing. That's how he did his best work. The lady needed it really quiet because she wanted to be able to focus. So that's how she got her best work. So neither one did anything bad. They were just trying to be themselves, but working at different, opposite points. This went on for ages and it became really tense, really toxic. They ended up hating each other. We did this profile, figured it out, and we were able to generate some tactics. So when you need lots of work, when you need to problem solve, to come up with creative solutions, go to the T-bar, play some pool, play some darts, have a laugh, that sort of thing, because you're getting yourself out of there. If you're really need to focus, you've got reports to write, you've got things to do, and you need to focus, put a do not disturb sign on your computer, put some headphones on, and that tells other people just to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Now, the two main protagonists, I'm not going to say that they ended up liking each other because it had gone on for too long, but actually very, very quickly it turned from a very toxic, tense environment into a very professional, credible one, and things became a lot smoother.
So on the back of that, what skills in particular do you think demonstrate leadership or make someone a good leader?
Again, it's situational because the way that you might lead somebody who's very performance focused is going to be very different to the way you'd lead somebody who's very empathetic or more sensitive. So really, it's that ability to adapt your style to the person. It's incredibly hard to do because as somebody who's an expert in things like DISC and SDI, I very naturally just speak the way that I like to speak. That's who we are as human beings. It's our natural style and that sort of thing. So it's something that's really hard to do. But once you're able to do it, once you're able to think, right, this person needs this, then that engagement with that person feels engaged. They feel as though they're getting the information they need in the way that they need it in order to be able to go off and have that clarity. A great example is a former client of mine, really, really smart guy. So intelligent, an engineer, very, very clever. He was a classic blue on DISC, which is all about data and accuracy and
C,
detail.
right?
C.
Yeah.
So very detail orientated. They tend not to be the most social people. That's not that they can't be sociable. Outside of work, they can be as sociable as anybody, but inside of work, it's all about getting the job and doing the job right. And he actually said to me, I don't understand why people open an email with, I hope you're doing well, because it's clear that they don't care. To him, that's 100% right. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter. I just want to do the job. So let's stop wasting time. Let's just crack on with it. But somebody who's a yellow, whose I influence within DISC, that's really important to them. Like, how you doing? And wants everybody to be happy.
It's a touch point.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about necessarily what we want. It's what the other people need in order to feel as though they're thriving, they're engaged. And having that ability to adapt to the individual will hands down make you the best leader. You can be the most dislikable person outside of work, but you provide your team what they need in order to be able to be clear on exactly what they need to be done, when it needs to be done, what the standards are, and everything like that. Then likability and good leadership are two entirely different things. Hopefully we can get both. That's the ideal, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you're not somebody who's particularly people orientated, that you prefer to just kind of lock yourself away, which is no problem with that. Just learn what your people need, and then they'll be able to just get on with things and leave you to get on with things that you need to do.
You make it sound easy.
Oh, it's not. It's really not. But once you've mastered it, it becomes so much easier.
And the impact you can get after they've spent time with you can be absolutely huge, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Real big difference.
It can be, yeah. And it's not just the kind of understanding that. It's so a lot of the real magic comes in the one-to-one work that I do, because it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a newly promoted line manager or you're CEO of some hugely successful organization. Everybody that I've worked with has imposter syndrome is the common terminology, but has doubts, has periods of kind of low confidence, low self-assurance. They don't know what the right decision is. They're kind of worried about certain things, and just having that ability to talk things through provides that clarity for that. But also, I'm struggling to get through to this person. How do I having that, it provides that kindness and clarity. Like I said, as somebody who's a disc profiler, who's an SDI profiler, I still find myself falling into that trap of just speaking the way that I want to speak, which then becomes ineffective for the people that I'm speaking to. Like in sales conversations, for example, that's so I don't have a team, but I speak to potential clients quite a lot. If you're able to adapt the way that you're speaking to a potential client, then they're going to feel far more engaged in that conversation and far more willing to work with you further. But when you're having a sales conversation, how many things do you have on your mind at a time? Right, I've got to overcome objections. I've got to make sure that the features tends to not tend to sell very well, but the benefits, what the results people are going to get. There's all these things circling through your head, which means that something's got to give. And what tends to give is that appreciation of what the other person needs. But when you're able to master this and kind of adapt your conversational style to what the individual needs, life just becomes so much easier.
No, we literally found that in our organization. We thought we were good at disc and we got this sales thing down.
Yeah.
And then we looked at our client base and they're all eyes, as is the sales team. And you go, actually, that's not quite how the population's split. So I wonder how we've messed that up.
No, and so the global population, the majority of the global population are S, sort of green star. That tends to be what most people are. But then you look at a hierarchical organization, promotion metrics generally are based on performance. You tend then to get a lot of red D type people will do very well. So therefore, that's the biggest conflict. The Ds versus the S's is the biggest conflict there, because you've got high-paced, task-focused, results-focused people versus slower paced, not slow as in but just more considered people who are focused more on people and empathy and understanding and feelings and that sort of thing. They're both trying to achieve the same thing, but they're coming at it from different perspectives. So that's why most people, when I ask a room, raise your hand if you've ever had a boss that you thought was a bit of a dick. Everybody's hand goes up. And it's not necessarily because they were a dick. Yeah. Sometimes they are. We can't be naive. But it's people coming at it from two opposing perspectives.
Yeah. It just shows how important the work you do is, really, and the difference it can make for an organisation, no matter what their size. Like you said, your ideal's like 25, but whether that be 5 or whether it be 1,000, it's a critical thing. If you miss that out and ignore it,
everybody knows logically. Everybody knows that engagement and the way you treat your team and things like that is the most important thing. I make HR people really nervous because I don't subscribe to the standard leadership messaging that you see every day on LinkedIn. So, for example, conflict brings a lot of fear with it because there's risk of tribunals and all that sort of thing that can go wrong. But actually, healthy conflict, healthy disagreement, passionate debate is really good for driving the business forward. But if we try to just not rock the boat, keep the peace, make sure everything's nice and calm and things like that, then we actually stifle productivity, we stifle growth. But when you're able to understand how to disagree effectively with this person, how to disagree effectively with that person, then you can lean into conflict. You can embrace conflict in a healthy way, and it allows you to grow.
It's got to be better than an echo chamber, right? Where one person said, "I've got this idea," and everyone goes, "Yeah." Much better that you all debate it properly, as long as you don't take it personally.
Correct. Yeah, and that again becomes a challenge, because as human beings, we don't like to be wrong. Anybody who's read The Chimp Management Paradox by Steve Peters, or he goes into this brilliantly. It's like, as a human being, our chimp in our head is our best friend, our advocate, our champion. To your chimp, you can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Every idea, every thought that you have as a human being cannot be questioned. So when somebody has the audacity to say, "I don't agree with that, what about this instead?" that chimp is going, "Who the hell are you to question me?"
Yeah.
And it's that automatic response. It's up to 15 times stronger than the logical side of the brain. So our instinctive response is to, like, no, this is me, especially when you then have the authority to be making the decisions. And that's a really hard thing to take under control. But when we can learn to just breathe through that ask ourselves some logic-based questions to start kicking in the human side of the brain, because that's where the logic, the learning, the rationality, the thinking, the language is. Then we can start to apply that. I realised something within myself maybe about 7 or 8 years ago now. A boss of mine, I was a flight sergeant in the Air Force, of the squadron flight sergeant. So generally speaking, you're the squadron commander's right-hand man. Having this team meeting, and one of my team members, really bright, really capable guy, brought an idea to me, and apparently I frowned at him. And he kind of really put kind of like a bit of tension in the thing. My boss said, "You realise the impact that you had there?" I was like, "What? I was just thinking it through."
Yeah.
So my thinking face is a real kind of frowny, kind of aggressive, like, who the hell do you think you're speaking to type thing. Whereas actually what's going on in here is I'm trying to think things I'm trying to process. So again, it comes down to how do you show up? How do other people interpret what you're doing? And when you can understand that, when you can take that time to breathe, to understand, to ask those logical questions, then you get to have a conversation human to human as opposed to a chimp reaction.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I love it.
Yeah.
And what about the skills involved in growing the business itself, growing your presence, growing that side versus being a great leader?
Yeah.
Which by the sounds of it, you probably are.
There's a lot of people who will disagree. I can tell you.
That versus growing the business itself, any skills there you think are particularly useful?
Often very different skills, aren't they? So I mentioned earlier, marketing is the worst part of my business. I'm messaging, marketing, that sort of thing. I'm actually not a bad salesman. I've invested quite a lot of money in sales training, how to frame conversations, a mindset when it comes to sales and that sort of thing. But getting the opportunities, I find quite difficult. I equate it to dating as a single guy. When I get a date, I tend to enjoy myself. I tend to have a good time. Getting the date tends to be the hard thing. Business, it's fairly similar. Getting the opportunity to have like the business development, the business growth opportunities, I find really difficult. And there's a lot of reflection that I've done on that. And at the end, I think that comes down to messaging. Actually, what is the result that people get from working with me? So you can have the best service in the world. This is something that I keep on learning over and over again. You can have the best service in the world. You can be the best provider of leadership development, of marketing, of IT-based services. You can be the best. But if people don't understand what it is that you can do for them, then your business is never going to go anywhere. And fundamentally, I think as a solo entrepreneur, as a micro business owner, I think ultimately everything else pales in comparison to your messaging. You get that messaging right, and you start to speak to people's pain points. But that's a really hard thing to kind of understand, because you know what you do, but how often do you find it's really hard to actually articulate that to other people? You end
up doing education sales almost, don't you? Sort of coaching them through what you do so that they can want it.
But how often do you go to a networking event and you kind of meet somebody, and you politely ask what it is that you do, and then you stare at them while they kind of keep on going on and on and on and on and on, because we haven't. It's like, right, how do I actually tell you what it is that you get from working with me in less than 10 seconds?
Yeah.
An incredibly hard thing to do. I'm really good at doing that for other people, I've realised. I am terrible at doing it for myself, because you can't see through your own bullshit, can you?
Yeah.
You need to define it very clearly and then get it into a succinct sentence or paragraph that you can deliver, definitely.
Yeah.
Where would you like to see the business get to? What's your ultimate sort of goals and plans of it?
So I would love to be the first provider of augmented reality training. I say the first. There might be already people out there. I just don't know if there are. I know there are certain places in the Air Force where they'll do parts of it augmented reality. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of virtual reality training.
I agree.
Because it tends to be disconnected. But when I was teaching leadership in the Air Force, we had this big outside training areas, and we'd go outside and we'd do all these activities. But we quite often had to get people to use their imagination. So let's pretend we're out on a adventurous training day, and now it's torrential rain and it's flooding. You've got all this equipment. You've got to get over this river and that sort of thing. Well, we had to rely on people's imagination, because if it's the middle of summer and the sun's beaming down, it's a beautiful day. It's not the same.
AR can help.
AR, you put some goggles on, you put some gloves on, and you might not necessarily be able to feel it, but you can hear it, you can see it. It changes that dynamic straight away. So I'd love to create an augmented reality training center.
So much cool stuff you could do with that. Again, that's triggered the nerd in me.
Yeah.
Thinking, I've got my Quest, I've got a HoloLens, let's have a play.
It's like when we saw each other a couple of weeks ago, you introduced yourself as a nerd and said, hi, I'm a geek.
Yeah. Exactly. But no, that's some really cool stuff you can do on that on AR. I've seen it used a lot in engineering. I've never thought of using it in training.
Yeah, I think the medical world uses it as well for that sort of thing. But yeah, a proper training center, we've got augmented reality rooms that just can clear and put the goggles on and you can kind of see the scenarios and everything like that. I'd love to have that, but doing all manner of different training. So obviously there's your general leadership training, your ILM, your CMI qualifications. Then you got your things like human factors, workplace mental health, workplace first aid, kind of a training center that covers all of the different skills and all the different aspects of running a workplace. So like all to be
really
run
cool
from this training, augmented reality training center.
Sounds like it'd be pretty unique.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is any
I don't
yet,
know if
like
anyone
you
doing
said,
that.
but maybe,
There might be. I just don't know of any.
Well,
I haven't done a huge amount of research on to be honest. I imagine it's going to cost several million pounds to create, so I'm nowhere near that. Yeah.
So cogs are whirring. I think you could do it for less, but it's fine. No, very cool. Any particular career highlights you'd like to highlight or anything like that?
So many options. Kind of depends what you mean.
Well, when you look back at all that you've achieved, or the people you've worked with, both in and out the forces, is there anything where you go, that was a fucking great day?
Back, I think it was 2014, I was working with the Royal Artillery, and as a unit, we went and scaled the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
So we from the top down to the bottom, and then across the bottom for a day, and then a day climbing to the top. And that was such an incredible experience, kind of sitting or standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, just seeing this huge, vast open space and thinking, actually, we are tiny. Actually, like, we walk around and you lose perspective, particularly if you're in the middle of a condensed city. You kind of lose perspective of just how vast the world is. And then you kind of look at this, and then you kind of look up all the stars and everything. You just think, crikey, we are a tiniest percentage of a drop in the ocean compared to just everything that's out there. I mean, getting to the top was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was literally crawling on hands and knees the last maybe couple of 100 meters up. Such a hard thing, but such an incredible kind of...
What experience, and achievement as well. It's
awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was a great couple of days.
And is there anything particularly new coming out in terms of the leadership world that you want to share with people? I know you mentioned one that could be further down the line. Is there anything imminent that you want to mention?
So what
share?
I really would love to do is to change the way that we develop leaders in the 21st century. I think if you read all Gallup state of the workforce reports, if you read all the kind of the Public Health England and all the mental well-being reports that are done year after year after year, the UK compared to the rest of Europe always features in the lower echelons when it comes to productivity in the workplace. Like in 2024, I haven't read 25s yet, but in 2024 we were 33 out of 38 when it comes to workforce productivity. You look at all the mental health stats, and every year it just shows that we're declining. People are getting unhappier. People are getting more stressed, more depressed. All of these things. So you would think that the way, if the way that we taught leadership actually worked, that wouldn't happen. So I think we teach leadership completely wrong. We teach leadership based on what human beings want, not what human beings need. And I think I can understand why, because we all want the same thing. We all want community. We want safety. We all want comfort. But comfort doesn't allow us to grow. Comfort doesn't allow us to get better. Human being wants comfort. It's why Netflix and Just Eat do so well, because I can sit on my sofa in my pants and get fed and entertained and barely have to move.
That's the dream.
It's great, isn't it? Doesn't mean it's any good for me.
No.
The way for human beings to grow, we need to have pressure put onto us. But it needs to be done in the right way. We need to recognize that just because somebody says that they're stressed out and overwhelmed doesn't mean that they actually are. They feel it. They're not lying. But if you ever worked with a personal trainer, I think this is a great way to put this. So You go to the gym by yourself. Yeah, you'll get sweaty, you'll work hard and that sort of thing. But there'll come a point where your body says to you, that's enough. And so you stop.
Yeah.
You work with a personal trainer, you get to that stage, and what do?
2 more.
Fucking make you do more. It's like, well, you go away.
Yeah.
But you can do it. And then you can do the next thing, and then you can do more. So actually, we're far more capable than we allow ourselves to do. But you can kind of break down the brain's job into one function. It's to keep us alive. And it does that by conserving as much energy as possible. So when we think we're stressed and we're overwhelmed, we're burned out and that sort of thing, actually we're not. It's just the brain telling us that we are. There's still more to go. But there does come a point where that becomes true. So that we are more capable, but there is still a limit. So helping managers recognize when to put the pressure on and then when to pull back, I think is one of the greatest skills that we can have, because people will grow, people will become better, people will become resilient, more stronger, able to achieve their aims, their ambitions far easier. Businesses will grow, will produce, will be able to provide more jobs, etc., etc. Whilst at the same time, people's mental health will go down. And I've seen this happen in reality. It works. When you apply pressure to people in the right way and recognize when the time's come off, they become better, they become happier. Mental health problems go down, well-being problems go down, mental health sick rates go down, your staff retention goes up. All of that happens when you understand what the human being needs, not providing what we want. Leadership training focus on providing human beings what they want, not what they need. So I don't see it happening. I'm a one-man band. I'm just one voice. But that's what I would love to see happen, because I think if we want human beings to thrive, we need to understand what human beings need in order to be able to thrive.
Could it be something that's taught in schools, perhaps, or anything like that? Or is it too difficult?
It's a great question. If I was Prime Minister, mindset education would be compulsory from the age of 3.
Yeah.
I think if we can teach how the mind works from the age of 3 and then kind of develop that all the way up to 18, a lot of the problems in society would go away. Because a lot of the reasons why people who grow up in rough neighborhoods, they stay there because that's what they believe that they are.
Yeah.
But actually that's another trick of the brain.
A limiting belief, isn't it?
It is. So if we can understand how the brain works and we can understand how to use it to our advantage, a lot of those societal problems will go away, I believe.
Definitely makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, I really agree. Excellent. I think that's been really insightful.
That's really good, actually. Enjoyed that a lot.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being here. Thank you for having me on.
And great. I think for people who are looking to get the maximum out of their people, no matter what size of team they are, for people that want real sort of a tangible insight into what you can do. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
If people wanted to find out more, where could they go?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest social media platform. I don't know if you're able to put a link in the comments.
Thing. Yep.
So I've got www.onedegree.uk, no code, just .uk is my website. But I'd love to give a free gift to your audience, if that's all right. I'm going to send you a link to download a free copy of my #1 best-selling book, Leadership 101, Don't Be a Dick. I've had some great feedback for that. So I'd love to offer you a
we'll put a link in the description as well.
So be able to download a free PDF. Thank you page then also gives them the option to get a free hard copy. They just have to pay for postage and packaging.
Brilliant.
That's it. But
amazing.
I'll pass that along to you.
Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed listening to our guest and us waffle our way through a fun conversation.
If you'd like to appear as a guest on the Business Growth Show, then do send us a message on LinkedIn and we'll come back to you and get it scheduled.